we go. I need to work out how to move this. There we go. So we've passed the first screen already, but just as a brief introduction then, and hopefully most of you know this already, but what is the Youth and Senior Academy? It used to be called Youth Development Squad before COVID. I think during that period of time it changed its name to Youth and Senior Academy. Essentially it starts with, it can go from 13 upwards really, anything from 13 upwards, although there aren't many 13-year-olds involved. So it's a national programme but delivered regionally in 4 areas. Aberdeen, Stirling, Glasgow, Edinburgh. The summers are split between these, and we've done it relatively similar to the districts, but we did move 1 or 2 people to a different venue that they might normally have gone to, just to keep the numbers a little bit more balanced. You guys are hopefully the lead coach and 2 assistant coaches plus the team manager for each area, and we'll come back to that in a minute. There's a blend of online and in-person delivery. Some of that online, like today, is a live session, and then some of it is going to be a recorded session that will be sent out to people, and they'll be asked to watch it during the week leading up to the training day. And that content of that online session or that recorded session will link into what happens at the training day. And there are 4 of those. Hopefully you've seen that, and we would cover that again in a minute. And in addition, some of the summers are at the very top end of Senior Academy. The older ones are ones about to go to university. There's a few of those who will, in addition to the normal sessions that you'll be delivering, we're going to invite them to attend a training session in what is effectively the centre or the hub programme in those respective venues as well. So this is the list of coaches. We did get this sent out to you, but just as a reminder, we've got lead coaches for Aberdeen is Laura Barry, Stirling Charlie Balderson, Glasgow Stuart McDougall, and Edinburgh is Jamie Ward. And then we can see we've got Susanna and Shelley assisting in Aberdeen, Susan, Craig in Stirling, Martin and Joanne in Glasgow, and Lucy and someone else hopefully to be confirmed. We've got a gap there at the moment for Edinburgh. And team managers, we're still working on one for Aberdeen. And we've got Bid in Stirling, Marie in Glasgow, and Derek in Edinburgh. I hope I've got that correct. The information that Ollie gave to me. And then just to run through, again, hopefully you've seen this, but just to go through the proposed schedule as it is. So we've got the 28th of August today, the online induction. We're going to have a little bit of talk about the athlete journey and performance behaviours in the athlete session. And then that's followed next weekend by the first training day, either on Saturday or the Sunday. That's very much dependent on when we could get the facilities in the respective places. And it does vary a little bit by venue and across the year as well. Then fairly quickly after that, we've got another online session. Although I think that'll be mainly a recorded session that's sent out. And then that's followed up on the 17th or 18th of September with the second training day. I've put this in, it might be tentative as 9th of October, but there will be an online session on anti-doping at some point. Now that date could change depending on content that. I've not really dealt with that bit yet. So that was in the program before I came to it. So I've kept that in just now, but there will be a separate online session about anti-doping at some point. And then we're not back until January. The last two parts of the program, the second half of the program is in January and February. Got an online session followed by training day 3 on the 14th or 15th. And then end of January for the last one, and the 4th training day on the 4th or 5th of February. Hopefully that makes sense. If there's anything else that gets added to that or gets changed from that, we'll obviously let you know. Okay, training days. This is just to say really what happens on the day. It's about 3.5 to 4 hours. Obviously, the summers will arrive. You'll sign them in, and then at some point you'll be in a room or an area in your venue. You'll do a welcome and an introduction, which obviously the lead coach and team manager should do that. Now, typically the education session will be before the summit session. However, there are a few times, depending on the pool time, where we've thought it better to place it afterwards because the pool time is quite early in the day. So it might be afterwards, but we've tried to schedule it that the education session is the first thing that happens. And then you go to the pool, and the pool sessions, and we'll come back to more of this shortly, the pool sessions are going to be completely about technique and skill development. With no kind of training sets or test sets or anything like that, no aerobic or anaerobic work. It's the whole thing is technique and skill development. And before they go, you should obviously debrief them about what they've done and look ahead to the next one. This is what the education sessions are covering. Anti-doping, as I mentioned, that kind of sits separately, and then the 3 ones that are linked to the training days are nutrition, psychology, and pre and post pool land work. And those seem to be popular areas that were covered in lockdown or last year, and there was a demand that there should be more of this again this year. So that's essentially why those are the topics that they have been put forward as the ones that needed to be followed up again already. So this is a delivery plan, and you can see there what's happening with each of these particular sessions in your area. And on day 1, it's actually an athlete's talk about their athlete journey and their performance behaviours that have helped them become successful. So next weekend, Glasgow and Stirling are getting Stephen Milne. He'll be coming along to deliver the talk. He's not there to swim and do demos, although if you persuade him to, there's no harm in doing that, but that's not the intention. He's there to deliver the athlete journey talk and be available for questions. Tane Bruce will do the Edinburgh one, and Hannah Miley will do the Aberdeen one. Come back to that later on. You can see then that day 2, we've got nutrition in Glasgow and Edinburgh, land work in Stirling, and psychology in Aberdeen. And you've got the person who's delivering that. They'll be coming along to that session and to deliver that piece of content for you. Obviously, as the head coach or the lead coach for each area, you should coordinate that, introduce it, and round it off at the end as well. And then that obviously changes on the other days. It rotates round, as you can see accordingly. Okay, and this is just summarizes the first 2 days. and hopefully we've got this right. But you should have been sent this anyway. There has been a change to the Aberdeen timing on day one. It's now a little bit later than it was. There was an issue with the booking, but I think hopefully everyone's been informed about that. We've got Saturday for Edinburgh and Aberdeen, and Sunday for Stirling and Glasgow. Then day two, it's all on Sunday apart from Edinburgh, which is on Saturday. But you can see there it's an early slot for the Edinburgh start time in the water. So that's why the practitioner session is after the swim session. Okay, a little bit more about what these athletes are doing. They've already recorded an interview where they've been asked questions, and that recording is going to be sent out this week, I hope, in the next couple of days. And there'll just be a link to a YouTube video where we want the athletes and yourselves to go on and watch that. It's about half an hour for each of the three swimmers. Watch that during the week, and then you can be primed when they come to the pool next week for them to go. They can go into a bit more detail, and also it's your chance and the swimmer's chance to speak to that athlete and dig down into them for any questions you want to get out of them. Hopefully that'll be useful, but you maybe want to encourage some of the swimmers, if you can, if you know them or you see them, to maybe try and think of some questions they might want to ask before they get there. Okay, so in the pool, we're just going to go over a little bit about what the pool content should be. Now, for the most part, I'm giving some guidance here, but it's very much over to you and your expertise. And I'll give you a chance to have a wee chat about this in a wee minute, but it's not too prescriptive in terms of the detail. I want really you to try and be creative with what you do. So we're going to spend the first two sessions on day one and day two is going to be completely all starts and turns based teaching and coaching. Nothing else. Short warm up for sure, but we're not doing any technical analysis of strokes or training sets. Like I say, we're going to take the whole session and really focus in on starts and turns. And obviously, there's lots of starts and lots of turns you can do anyway. So, you're not going to get through everything, but a chance to focus in on that. You'll have about 15 to 20 swimmers with you. And you'll have at least 3 coaches and maybe home coaches as well. So you will be able to get into some detail, I hope, with the athletes. You should have plenty of space in the water, and really get stuck into that. And then the proposal at the moment is for day 3 to be freestyle and backstroke, and day 4 to be breaststroke and butterfly focused. I'm just giving you some pointers on what starts obviously should cover. I realize you know all this, but just to kind of state it as a reminder. Let's consider block position, reactions, how you react when the gun goes, what the takeoff should be like, what the flight should look like, the entry position, the underwater phase, and the transition back to the stroke. So that's 6 different things there, which can be considered as a whole or can be broken down into those individually. And of course, you've got it for backstroke as well in the water, slightly different, but the same principle. And then turns, again, the normal stuff. Let's focus on the approach to the wall, the touch and the rotation speed. Hand touch, obviously, for fly and breast, and then for freestyle backstroke, the rotation and the feet touch, where that foot placement should be, how you should push off, the streamlining position, the body position, and the post-glide action, as it's sometimes referred to, after you've pushed off. Then there's a moment of streamlining, and then you start your underwater phase, whether it's a pull-out or on breaststroke or fly kick on the other strokes. And obviously the transition to the stroke as well. Now, we can teach it artistically using our knowledge of skills, but I think there's an opportunity to try and provide a little bit of objective information as well, which we might know or we have understood over the time from our own time in the water, our coaching and swimming. There's obviously an optimal point when you push off the wall when the underwater kick should be initiated. And if I don't know if anyone wants to shout out what you think that might be. I can't see any of you at the moment, so I'm just looking at the screen, but I don't have the chat box open. But how far off the wall, either in meters or in time, do you think you should be when the swimmer starts their underwater kicking phase?
When you're no longer going forward fast enough, and you're starting to not starting to slow down, but before you start to slow down, so that it's a sort of seamless transition.
Yes. Where do you think that happens? Obviously, it's different from maybe a little bit different with a young kid to an elite athlete, but
yeah, basically, do you mean in terms of like meters, or do you mean like streamlining?
Yeah, literally, how far away are you from the wall, or how long in time are you away from the wall when that might happen?
Basically, when the streamlining starts to fall apart.
So how do we know when that is?
You can, if they push off and then do demonstrations where you see them push off and then start to slow down, and streamlining, and first of all do it without kicking, and then start playing around with which is best for them.
Yeah,
would be the way.
You're absolutely right. It's quite hard for the swimmer to know this, but some of the research been done on this has found that swimmers generally, the majority, tend to start their kick a little bit.
Put your fins on.
Oh, Joanne, let's mute Joanne again. They start their kick a little bit too early.
Yeah.
Gliding, this is what some of the data has found. Gliding velocity drops below kicking velocity approximately 1.1 to 1.5 seconds after the feet leave the wall. And often the swimmers start their kick much earlier than that. So the suggestion is they're not taking enough opportunity to optimize the glide phase. Another question. What is the optimal depth of the underwater kick or the underwater phase?
How far are they going underwater is my question.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, Martin.
Dependent, I would probably say a meter to a meter and a half below. Actually, no, maybe that's a bit too far. I'd say a meter below the surface of the water would probably be good. But then if they were pushing it all the way to 15 meters, maybe a little more. Just off the top of my head.
You obviously saw this presentation in advance then.
I actually didn't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, the suggestion from what I've read is that you optimize the wave track, because obviously you're creating movement of the water that goes upwards and downwards and to the side as well. It can rebound off the floor, it can create drag at the surface. and therefore you need to be a reasonable amount of centimeters underneath that, but you don't want to be too close to the bottom of the pool. So it's generally thought that between 1 and 1.5 meters deep is the optimal place to be doing your underwater phase. And here's another one. What's the optimal underwater kicking rate or tempo? How fast should the kick be?
I thought that was quite dependent on the swimmer. But
I think there's an element of uniqueness for every individual, but there tends to be an area where most people fall into in terms of how fast it should be, and also how fast you can actually do it.
yeah.
And it's,
I think it's around two kicks per second.
Yeah, it's just slightly quicker than that. Yeah. For most swimmers, this is found somewhere between 0.4 and 0.45 seconds per kick. So at least 2 kicks per second. If the swimmers kick slower than two kicks per second, you'll certainly notice that as a coach. You'll certainly be aware of that. You know, you get to 0.6, 0.7, and you'd be like, yeah, that's way too slow. But at the same time, it's very difficult to be quicker than 0.4 and actually do it properly. You'd have to be just like flicking your toes really fast. Anyway, the point of that was to just say, yes, we're going to be doing a lot of time on, I want you guys to be teaching the start and the turns, but let's reference what we know about some of this stuff, if we do know it. Of course, you know, all research is up for being disproved, and no doubt someone comes along one day and does that, but we generally know that people have their maximum underwater speed when they're kicking at about 2 or just quicker than 2 kicks per second. So these are things I think you can get across to this type of group, youth academy, senior academy. They're not the young kids coming out of that are maybe quite new to the sport, as would be in the junior academy or the old DRP. These kids are pretty good. Most of them are national finalists, national medalists, certainly in Scotland, or they're perhaps even better than that. So, you know, we can take it to a slightly more advanced stage. Again, don't want to tell you what you know about your strokes. You all know this, but it's just as a reminder, when we're talking about the swimming strokes, we need to consider drag and all the different types of drag. We need to consider propulsion and how stroke rate and stroke length affect all of that. Velocity is controlled completely by your stroke length and your stroke rate and the drag. And then we need to look at the 5 things that people would normally say that all the stroke rate, the stroke length, the propulsion, the drag fit into, and are affected by what you do with your body position, what you do with your legs, what you do with your arms, how you take your breath, and some strokes more important than others, obviously, and then the timing of how you put all that together. Okay, I'm going to split you into breakout groups if I can in a minute, because this is your chance. I just want you to have a chance to chat for 5 minutes or so about this. And it's not to come up with the answer, but just to speak to each other. So when you're at the pool, we want you to use your knowledge, your expertise, your teaching skills, your communication skills, and your creative innovation. You're going to have, on a pool session, you're going to have a maximum of 120. The likelihood is you've actually got less than 120 minutes to make as much positive impact as possible. So how can you guys use this time most effectively is the question. I'm going to just stop sharing briefly. This is where I need your help, Derek. if
You're
you're on,
muted.
if you're,
Yeah, so you need to make me a co-host or something.
yeah. Well, hang
If
on.
you go to participants up there, maybe under more, maybe.
Yeah,
Is it not down the bottom? And
Yeah,
you can go
there you
down
go.
to share.
I've made you a co-host, Eric. Or, I mean, I can split you now, I suppose, but that's helped me for later on anyway.
Yeah. So you just want them in how many rooms?
For now, what have we got? There's 10 of you.
Yeah. You want 2 rooms?
3 rooms? Go 3
Three.
rooms.
Have a look then.
You don't need to keep it in their geographical group. Just
No,
mix it up
just,
anyway.
I've mixed it up.
So it's just to have a 5, maximum 10 minutes. How are you going to utilize the time as coaches in the water to make the best effect in terms of teaching starts, turns, strokes? How will you organize it? What will you do? You know, just have an early chat about that.
Okay. You want them in?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they all told me they weren't coming for this bit. Some of them might be logged on later.
Yeah.
Ian, can I ask a practical question? Which swimmers are coming to Aberdeen? Is because at Dundee? Are they going to Stirling?
No. Anyway, all of the Aberdeen area people plus Dundee.
Okay. That's what I was checking.
I don't know if there's that many from the Dundee area, but if anyone is from there, they're coming up to Aberdeen. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was just to have an idea of numbers, that's all.
You'll get, I think we'll send you the list, make sure you've got all the exact, make sure you know who's coming before they come. I don't know if the team managers might even have already got that. I'm not sure if that got to you yet, but if it hasn't, we'll get that across to you.
Great, thank you.
I think they're due to come out Monday, Tuesday, is what I've heard.
Yeah, we'll make sure it comes to you.
Great.
I'm going to go back to the presentation in a minute, not too far to go, but any useful chat there? Anyone want to comment on any of it?
Martin, you had a good thought about propulsion.
Yeah, we were just discussing there about keeping obviously the days engaging, but really trying to get some meaningful messages across. Like I was saying, when I came up through maybe from similar ages, 13 to 17, I had an idea of the stroke, but a real deeper understanding of what parts of the stroke or what parts of the dive give you the momentum or the propulsion to go in the correct way and which parts don't. I think that could be just a useful way of trying to keep them engaged, but just trying to make that also fun as well, because if I bog them down a little bit too much with all of that, it can maybe lose some concentration. And also one other thing we discussed was just on the starts, just about would backstroke ledges be available at all of the locations, just as like a check, because obviously if not, it could affect some of the.
Well, I know they'll be available at Tollcross, so I assume that you'll be able to use them at ASV and Stirling. St Leonard's I'm a little less sure about if they have access to them. I know they have them, but they should have. Jamie, do you know?
Jamie's like,
I can ask Jonesy and Matt if they've got them at St Leo's, but I think they have them, but whether I'll have access to them, I'm sure that they'd be fine with it. So I'll drop them a message and ask. Okay.
All right. Any other brief comments before we dip back in?
Ian, I was going to ask about how much pool space we've got in Tollcross for it.
Honest answer is I don't really know, but we'll obviously find out. I'm going to say it's at least 6 lanes.
Okay.
It might not be the whole thing, but I think I did ask for 6 lanes for the booking, but it's usually, well, it's been a little bit tricky at Tollcross because there's this first one there's an event on, so it'll be later in the evening. It might end up being that you've got all 10 lanes short course.
Okay, thanks.
Now, whether you use them all or not is up to you.
Yeah, we were like, I thought that might have been the case, but I wasn't sure. And we were talking about maybe doing, because they're slightly more senior athletes than the junior academy ones. We were talking about maybe doing some peer coaching with them. They're a little bit more experienced. A lot of them know a lot of these things.
Yeah.
So
that's a good idea. It might be dependent on lifeguard numbers as well. If there's only a short number of lifeguards around, they might only get 5 lanes because you'll only be able to use half of them. So we can ask them.
Can we do things like reactions time games and stuff with them, or
yes, if you feel it's effective. I mean, I'll maybe just touch on that here in this next so here's just a theoretical way of linking it together as how you teach it and how you make it more valuable. It's not giving anything special away here. This is grounded in theory, really. But you teach the skill, and that's where you can come up with like reaction games, or basically trying to use engaging, enjoyable, and effective practices, whatever they are. That's where you can use your creativity to do that. And then again, I appreciate you've only got the 2 hours and you've only got the 4 days, but once the swimmer can do a skill, you're really trying to expose the swimmer to options of easier and harder ways to do that skill. For obviously, we can push off the wall and we can do 4 kicks, right? And we can come up and that's dead easy. Or we can push off the wall at the end of a 200 backstroke and we can go 12 kicks and come up at 15 meters. That's a lot harder to do. It's the same skill, but it's harder to do. So you can find ways of how do you get that skill to be taught or utilized in a easier and harder way, and maybe ultimately we're trying to encourage the swimmers to choose the harder option, particularly when they're in training and competitions. And then on top of that, maybe you can add, this is a little bit more difficult because as a normal coach, you try to do this through your normal training sessions and your competitions. How do you test the skill? Create experiences that test the skill, but then have a consequence on it. That's something that often I think about, and maybe we don't. You say, why don't they do their underwaters better? Well, sometimes there's no consequence on the athlete doing it, and they can win races without it. Then sometimes it's harder to persuade them to do it. However, if you can show an athlete that they're losing races because other people are doing it better than them, then they can maybe understand there's a consequence of not doing the skill right. So again, have a think about that. That's just, I'm not telling you have to do it like that. I want you to do it in your own way, but you might come up with some things that link to that type of situation. Teach the skill, expose doing it in different ways, and then try and place a consequence on it. You might have a game at the end of the session that has consequences on it for who does the skills the best, type thing, and that might be something that gets across to an athlete. So, team managers, your little bit here. I'm sure you're all I know you're very experienced, but just to highlight what the basics, what your job is for this. As normal, you'd get to the venue, check everything's prepared and ready. Be aware of any venue-specific issues or stuff you need to know about, fire alarms, emergency action plan, etc. Meet and greet the swimmers and the coaches. Take a note of who attends. Ensure that whoever's coming, whether it's the swimmer or one of those practitioners, that you find them, they get to the right place at the right time, and whatever they need is set up. Don't know if they're doing presentations where they need projectors or stuff like that, or they're just talking, or they need paper or whatever. Well, that can come in due course, but the point is to try and find out and make sure that they can run the session they want to run it. Liaise with the lead coach on any important issues that crop up. Deal with any important issues that crop up. Health, illness, welfare type situations. And of course, ensure everyone gets away safely, gets picked up if they're young by their parents, etc. So, and then just report back to Scottish and myself or Shona or Ali after each day. You don't need to do a big report or anything, but it's just, just let us know that it went okay and these people were the ones who attended, or if there's any issues that need to be noted. A little bit on program expectations. So we expect the swimmers and you guys to attend all the activities. Let myself or Shona in the office know if there's any problems about attending in advance, if you can. Obviously, people do get ill or what have you, so I'm sure that'll happen at some point. This is for the swimmers. We want them to make sure they understand they need to respect you guys, respect any staff at the venue that they're coming across, and obviously respect each other. We're asking them that they should, not compulsory to be on this program, but we're kind of encouraging them that at this stage of your swimming, you should be keeping your own weekly training log, and that you should be setting both outcome and process goals. They should know their competition calendar, and when the priority meets are. This is an expert, come back to this, they need to complete the AIMS survey. That will get sent out to them, and they need to have an understanding about clean sport, anti-doping, and an expectation that they know that their coaches might be providing Scottish Swimming with their information on how they're getting along in training. Just touching briefly on the AIMS survey, this isn't something you're going to have to deal with, but just to understand that the swimmers may ask you about it and what it is. So some of you will know already, but it's a short survey. It provides background information on them. It's an element of self-evaluation. It allows them to set their key goals or work out what they are from a technical point of view, a behaviours point of view, a tactical point of view, and also then for them to assess that progress. It's not a test for Scottish Swimming. It's really an educational tool for the athlete to go through that process, and they should obviously do that with their coach as well. But it might be something that gets brought up, particularly in this first week, next weekend. I'd like to think it's going to go out to the swimmers this week, but I'm not sure that we're going to try and do that. It's not in my hands, that bit, but they might have done it by then. This is the type of question they get asked in it. How would you rate your technical ability, etc., etc.? What is your overriding goal? What process goals are you going to set to achieve that overriding goal? So it's stuff like that they're going to get asked. It's a reduced version of what some of the older swimmers might get. Now, performance behaviours, we won't do a breakout here because we're going to do a breakout in this athlete session about this. We'll ask them what sort of behaviours should a youth senior academy swimmer be able to demonstrate, and we'll give them a few minutes to try and come up with some answers here. There isn't an exact list, but here's a few things that they might answer that we might be looking for them to do as athletes. Again, there's going to be a range here. You've got 13-year-old girls up to 19-year-old boys in this program, so some are much more experienced than others, but they're all good swimmers, so we want them to be trying to think about their behaviours in and out of the water and how they affect them as an athlete, their growth as an athlete, and ultimately their performances as well. So we'll come back to that later because I don't want to drag on too long here. We're nearly at 5 o'clock, so I'll stop sharing there. Anyone got any particularly urgent questions that you want to ask now before we move off to the athlete session?
Do you want us to do any crossover turns, or should we avoid that?
No, I think you should be doing back to breast crossover turn, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
No, definitely. More and more people do look to be doing that, even at the young age group level now, so I think that's a good thing.
And it's okay to show videos that we have of, like, on our iPads and stuff.
Well, yes, although one thing I've forgotten to mention to you there, and hopefully remember to say it in the athlete one, is that between the sessions, as well as the practitioner video, and I'm working on this at the moment with Alan Davidson from Elite Sport Analysis, that we're going to create a series of short video clips of technical things, starts, turns, strokes, and we will then send these to the swimmers. They will log into we'll just send them a link. They will log into the eSwim website, and then they can watch these again prior to their training day. Now, I don't think I've got time to get it ready before day one, but hopefully before day 2, we'll have some starts and turns footage that will go out to the swimmers, and then they would log in and watch it. There might be a wee question that goes with it. You'd be able to watch it as well, and then that can lead into the technical element of the training day itself. The good thing is that we're going to hopefully set it up in a way that the website will record who's logged in and watched all the clips.
Okay.
So we will know who didn't.
Who's actually bothered.
Not to check the ones who did, it's more to see who didn't really. But, fairly simple to set up within the website. So that's coming, it's just not ready yet.
I've got some from previous years. I think it was a couple of years ago. There was ones that, you know, the starts and turns that were for the, I can't even remember what it's called, YDS. It was Youth Squad a few years ago.
Yeah.
So I was just going to use those, but until the next ones come.
Okay. Anything else? 5 minutes.
Can we film the swimmers on the day?
Depends what you're using it for. I suppose if you I mean, I guess the short answer is yes. I don't see why not, but we just want to be careful that we're not doing it in the wrong way. If there's any procedures that that need to be followed for that.
Has any paperwork gone out to the athletes on that, Ian? Because
I don't know.
That's probably your biggest issues.
There's a privacy thing that's gone out. There's a privacy statement, so I just need to check on that. Now, if a swimmer uses their own phone to film themselves, you know, that's maybe slightly different to you using your phone to film athletes. We don't really want to encourage you guys to then filming stuff on your device and then you sending it to the athlete. I think that would probably come back as best not to do that. But we'll look into that.
And sorry, Ian, did you say that Shona will have the list of what athletes are where and that kind of thing by Tuesday, did you say? Just to
yeah.
Perfect.
We'll come back to you with that. Just to make you aware, particularly Edinburgh, there's and it should go on the list, but there's a couple of kids, or 3 or 4 kids who are on this program who are not based in Scotland. But all of them, and what we've said to them is you are not obliged to take part because we realise you've got a journey. You know, some of them live in the south of England, some of them live in Dubai. But in fact, the feedback that's come back from most of them is that they want to do something. They're going to, there's a couple of kids flying over here from Dubai for this. So
they can afford it.
Yeah, it would seem so. So what we did with them was we gave them an option of you can go wherever you want based on whatever's easiest for your travel situation. So there's a couple of them, Emmy Aitken and Megan Donovan going to Edinburgh. Edward Bell is going to Glasgow. And Murray Pritchard, although he lives in Scotland, he's doing day one at Stirling, but then he's going to be at uni in Glasgow. So he'll do the other 3 days at Glasgow. So yeah, they might not dip into all the 4 days, but because that is okay, because they live away and they're just trying to keen to be part of it where they can be. They will obviously, they'll engage with all the online stuff as well.
Okay.
What were those names again, Ian?
Emmy Aitken, Megan Donovan.
Megan Donovan, thanks.
Okay, we better log off and I better start the next meeting. Thank you.
See you all shortly.
Anything else, you can contact me in the week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Cheers, Ian.
Cheers.
No worries.